Greetings and salutations, YouTube land. As you can see behind me, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, I'm sure you know, I have a pretty decent autograph collection. Got over 100 Funkos, got more signed photos than I can count, some impressive people. Now, I know there are better collections out there, there are worse. I think mine's pretty good. The cool thing about mine is I haven't really broken the bank to build this collection. So today, I'm doing this kind of top 10 style, but this isn't really going to be like top 10. But it's 10 tips, plus a little bonus discussion on how to build an impressive collection on a budget. Now, I am going to be mostly focusing on autographs because that's what I'm mainly collecting right now. However, most of these tips can be applied to pretty much anything you collect. Toys, vintage cars, well, maybe not cars, like toy cars, matchsticks, whatever it is you collect. You can pretty much apply these tips to anything. Number one, most important, is make a budget and stick to that budget. Now, I don't know your finances. You don't know mine. Probably for the best. But figure out how much you can afford and set that amount aside a week. And either spend that if there's something you want, or save it up to get something bigger. I'll also say, don't treat this money as sacred. If you have this money set aside for a Carrie Fisher autograph, something goes wrong with the car out of nowhere, spend the money, save up again. It's the smartest thing you can do. It's a great way to stretch your budget so you can get bigger things. And don't think just because you have, I don't know, $100 a week you can spend, that you have to spend that every week. Save it up, get yourself some cool stuff. My next tip is one that's very important. I think a lot of people fall for. You need to avoid FOMO, fear of missing out. It is way too easy when some big signing gets announced to get all hyped for it, want to jump in because everybody else you know is jumping in. You're going to miss out. You'll never be able to get this. You end up spending outside of your budget, and especially if it's somebody that you're not a big fan of. I'll hear all the time people will get hyped because, like, there's some big horror star who's never done a signing, who's doing a signing. But I don't collect horror. I'm glad for the people who get into it. I think it's cool. But don't fall for the hype. Don't go for it. Next is one that I think is very important and one a lot of people need help with, including myself sometimes, I will admit. Accept your limitations. If you're on a budget, you're not going to have the world's greatest collection. For example, I love Star Wars. It's my favorite movie. I've grown up watching it. I have a ton of toys. I have a lot of stuff. But the big three, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill, they're just out of my price range. They're too expensive. I understand this. I know without a bit of luck involved, I'm probably never going to have them in my collection. And I'm okay with that. I know my limitations of what I can afford, and I stick to it. Most of the time. And at the same time, along with that, because be smart, like, you'll see sometimes, like, an absolute insane grail piece, like a multi-cast signed prop or something that looks awesome. And even if it's your all-time favorite movie, if it's well outside your budget, just don't go for it. We all know people in any hobby, you'll see them buy some insane piece that is so expensive, and then 3 weeks later, they're trying to sell it because they can't afford the mortgage and they're going to be homeless, or they spent their entire Disney World budget on this one piece and now their wife's threatening divorce. So, yeah, remember your limitations, accept it. It's not fun to hold the piece for 5 minutes. In that case, just print out a picture of it and have that. Next one that I think is important, don't compare your collection to other people. Your collection is yours. Now, I'm not saying never look at anyone else's collection. I do that. I like to see what other people have. See if, oh, you thought of a cool inscription I didn't think of. Or, wow, you have a John Candy Barf. That would be insane. I would love that. But don't start looking at your collection and going, wow, compared to him, my collection sucks. I should get this, this, and this so I can have a really cool collection too. Collecting is a personal thing. I know there are people I look at and like, wow, they have insane things I would love to have in my collection. But at the same time, I know there's people, some of you may even be watching this, who look at my collection and go, wow, he's got an insane collection. I would love to have that. Don't compare your collection, accept what you can do. My next tip, is to collect outside the box. Not literally, unless you're an action figure collector, then in that case, go for it. But if your budget's on the smaller side and you want to try to get a cool collection going, try to collect things other people don't collect, because you can get those a lot cheaper. For example, in the world of autograph collecting, you can get signatures on plain pieces of paper, what are called cuts, at a fraction of the price of like a Funko, an action figure, or a photo, because most people don't like to collect them. Same thing with books. You can get signed books at insane deals because a lot of people don't like to collect them. They don't display great. So if you're willing to go that route, you can get some really cool people at really good deals. Especially if you're like skilled at framing or something. I've seen people take like cuts and do like a nice, print out from a movie or something, put them together in a nice frame. It looks cool. Next is one that's very important. Very important. When you're on a budget, you're always looking for ways to save money. And one way people try to do this is they will try to cheap out on certification. They will buy stuff without a cert or from davesautograph.world.com, which I hope isn't a real site, but if it is, I apologize, Dave. Don't be a Dave. Anyway, something with just some random cert or unknown cert because it's an insanely good deal. You could never find this at this price. The reason is, I will say, well over 90% of the time, it's probably a fake and probably a bad one. Always remember the old adage, if a deal is too good to be true, it most likely is. If you're going to get something certed, get it by a reputable company. And if you're not really good at recognizing signatures, don't risk it. It really stinks if you have a huge budget and you spend some money on something that turns out to be fake. If you have a tiny budget, that can destroy your collection. Don't go cheap on certifications. I mean, personally, I mostly trust JSA, Beckett, and AOC. I can never remember the name of it. There's another one. It's going to come to me later. You guys know it. For wrestling, High Spots is, I feel, the best. And Dark Parlor Originals. Oh, and Zobi. If it's a trusted company, sir, trust it. If it's some weird dude on eBay selling something, don't risk it. Unless it's money you can afford to throw away and you have absolutely nothing better to do with it, don't. This is something I fell for myself once. I wanted to raise a Ramon Funko. I found a great deal on Whatnot. I hadn't heard of the COA on it. I got it in, did a Beckett quick check, came back almost immediately as a fail. Checked in with some people who I know who were better with the autograph. They instantly found several flaws in it. It was a fake. I was heartbroken. Ended up having to fight to get my money back. Don't go cheap on your certifications. My next tip is buy at smart times. The absolute worst time to buy an autograph is right after the celebrity dies. At that point, everybody who loved that celebrity or thinks they love that celebrity is jumping in to buy it because there'll never be any more signatures of them. Anybody who has one is jumping up the price because they're never going to sign again. Demand is outrageous. The price goes through the roof. And then most of the time, a few months later, or even like a year or two later, it settles back down a little higher than it was before they died, but way less during the immediate aftermath of their death. So again, with my Razor Ramon Funko I have up there, it was probably about a year and a half after he died, I think, that I got that. Maybe a year, somewhere in that time frame. And the price wasn't much higher than when they had first come out, when when he was doing signings, it was, I think, like $25 more. I was patient, I waited, I got what I wanted, paid a little more than it was before, which I still regret not getting one before he died, but it wasn't the $400 or $500 people were asking in the immediate aftermath. My next tip is, especially if you're on a budget, don't just buy from the major companies. Obviously, they are the most trusted, they are the most trustworthy. But if you're into collecting, get into the groups on Facebook, look for people selling there. And once again, make sure it's a legit cert, something you trust, but don't be afraid to buy from them. For example, when Stacy Keibler was doing her signings, it was $140. Not bad, worth it. I almost bought it at that price. I just screwed up the date and didn't get my order in on time because I procrastinate too much. But I waited a few months and the market got flooded and I was able to pick up pieces for $50 of hers because it was from smaller dealers. And like I said, the market was flooded, so I was buying at the right time. My next tip, and I think this is my final one unless I'm missing something in here. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I do have two more. I'm really bad at this. But this is a simple one. If there's something in particular you're looking for, set alerts on different sites for said item. Thanks, Trump. I use Mercari a lot, obviously eBay. Have alerts set for that item. That way, as soon as one is listed, you get the alert. That way, if something is up at a really good deal, which does happen, you've got the shot to be first. Especially if you've been budgeting and saving up, you've got the money ready. See how this all ties together? My final tip is trading. If you buy a lot of stuff, or it's just if your interest changes on things, you could quite easily end up with pieces in your collection that don't have a lot of meaning to you. It's not something you particularly care about. It happens. So, this is difficult, but on a lot of the online groups, you can find trade threads. You might have to work at it, but if you trade, you can sometimes end up with something for your collection more. Or if you get really lucky and you're willing to negotiate and you have enough to offer, you might be able to find somebody with like a grail piece who's willing to do what's called trading down. For example, if someone had like a Macho Man piece that they've been trying to sell for a while, and I've seen it in the groups forever, I might, ask them, hey, are you interested in trading if I trade more than the value of what you're asking? And it works out for them because most of the time I'll be trading things to them that money-wise, They'll add up to slightly more than they're asking, but it's stuff that'll sell a lot faster. Works out for them, works out for me. I will say this is difficult because a lot of people who have higher end stuff simply only want to trade it for other higher end things. But if you find someone who's willing to deal, or if you've got some higher end stuff you've been stuck on for a while, consider trading down. You get faster stuff, being liquid is key. The final thing, not really a tip, but a discussion point, is mystery boxes. Obviously, if you watch my channel, you know, I love the mystery boxes. It's kind of my shtick. And, 9 million other YouTubers out there. But they're not as good as me. But anyway, sorry about that. Some program on my computer just went nuts. The hell are you and why are you opening? Mystery boxes. If you're on a budget, should you buy mystery boxes? This is a tough one. It's the thing with especially like the bigger mystery box shows, like I'm going to use Autograph City here because they're the main ones who I know who are still going. It's usually $150 a show. Some of them are more. And my main thing is don't get attracted just to the one big piece. Now, I love Autograph City. I buy from them all the time. I recommend them. But I only buy when it makes sense to me financially. I never go into it going, oh my God, they've got, I'll use it again because it's one of my Grail pieces. They've got a Carrie Fisher Princess Leia piece. I want that for my collection so bad. If I don't have the money, I won't spend it. I won't buy more boxes than I can afford for any show. Never count on getting the big thing. Most of, especially the more reputable shows, you'll get something good. But there's a good chance you'll get something that doesn't fit your collection. Sometimes it's something that's harder to move. Or in some cases, which I've run into before, something that's worth far less than the value of the box, depending on the show. In which case, you're out money, you don't feel great, and you just blew your budget on a gamble. Now, if you're doing it because, hey, I enjoy the mystery, this is fun, I don't mind taking the chance on losing out, and I'll be really happy if I get something cool, in that case, go for it. They're fun. Just be willing to accept the fact that you're taking a risk and you may not get what you wanted. I've gotten some insane pieces I would never have been able to get from these shows. Like I said, and I'm not saying Autograph City here, but from some other shows, I've gotten some stuff that I honestly don't care if the dog pukes on it. Which, well, I'd care because she puked, but you get what I'm saying. So there we go. 10 tips plus a little extra discussion. If you follow these tips, over time you will be able to build a very nice autograph collection without blowing your budget and ending up cuddled around a fire, living in a tent with some really cool autographs. Nobody wants to see that. As always, like, subscribe, notifications. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes.